I should have known better than to trust my sister's judgment about men. The champagne flute in front of me had gone flat 20 minutes ago. Bubbles long since disappeared like my hope for this evening. Marcus, the corporate lawyer she'd sworn was exactly my type, sat across from me checking his phone with the kind of disinterest usually reserved for waiting rooms. "Look, Lauren," he said without glancing up. "I'm going to be honest with you. My firm's senior partner set this up through your sister because apparently I need to appear more socially engaged for the holiday season." He finally looked at me, his expression completely devoid of shame. "You seem nice and everything, but I have a girlfriend. Well, sort of. It's complicated. Anyway, this was never going to be an actual date." The restaurant buzzed around us with holiday cheer. Garlands wrapped around columns, candles flickered on every table, and a piano player in the corner worked through a jazz version of Silent Night. I'd worn the emerald green dress I'd been saving, the one that made my red hair look intentional instead of accidental. I'd turned down my firm's Christmas party for this. "You couldn't have mentioned this before I ordered appetizers?" My voice came out steadier than I felt. "Yeah, about that." He stood, straightening his tie. "I'm going to head out. You can stay, enjoy the food. I'll cover the bill on my way out. Consider it a Christmas gift or whatever." Then he was gone, weaving through tables of couples and families who all seemed to be having the kind of evening I'd stupidly believed I might have. The waiter approached with careful sympathy, the kind that made everything worse. "Miss, can I bring you anything else?" "No, thank you. Just the check when you have a chance." I couldn't sit there another second. Every neighboring table felt like an audience to my humiliation. I gathered my coat and purse, left cash on the table for the untouched appetizers Marcus had supposedly covered, and pushed through the heavy doors into the December night. The cold hit me like a physical force. Rain fell in thick sheets, immediately soaking through my coat. I hadn't brought an umbrella because Marcus had promised to drive me home. Of course he had. I pulled my coat tighter and started walking, my heels clicking against wet pavement as I tried to remember where the nearest subway entrance was. That's when I saw the boy. He couldn't have been older than 6, standing beside a black car that screamed money even to my architecturally trained eye. Custom detailing, bulletproof glass if I had to guess. The child wore an expensive coat and stood unnaturally still, the kind of stillness that comes from fear rather than patience. His dark eyes scanned the street, wide and searching. My first thought was that he'd gotten separated from his parents. My second thought dissolved when I saw the man approaching from the side street. Everything about him was wrong. The way he moved, predatory and focused. The way he glanced over his shoulder. The way his hand reached inside his jacket. I'd grown up in New York. I'd learned to read danger the way architects read blueprints. The man lunged for the boy. I didn't think. Thinking gets you killed, or gets someone else killed. I ran, my heels somehow finding purchase on slick concrete. My umbrella, the heavy metal one I'd grabbed on instinct when leaving my apartment hours ago, became a weapon. I swung it hard into the man's knee, heard the satisfying crack of metal against bone. "Get back!" I shouted at the boy, grabbing his arm and yanking him behind a concrete planter that some city planner had installed as a streetscape feature. Thank God for decorative urban design. The man stumbled, cursed in a language I didn't recognize, and reached for his jacket again. I saw the gun before he fully drew it. Time seemed to slow and accelerate simultaneously. I pulled the boy closer, putting my body between him and the threat, my mind already calculating angles and cover and whether we could make it to the restaurant entrance. Then the street exploded with movement. 3 men in dark suits materialized from nowhere, moving with military precision. The attacker tried to run. He made it maybe 5 feet before he was on the ground, face pressed into wet concrete, one of the suited men's knees on his spine. The whole thing took maybe 7 seconds. "Leo!" A voice cut through the chaos, deep and commanding and vibrating with barely controlled fury. I looked up from where I'd crouched with the boy and saw him. He strode toward us through the rain like he owned not just the street, but the entire city. Tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a suit that was somehow still immaculate despite the weather. Dark hair swept back from a face that belonged in Renaissance paintings, all sharp angles and aristocratic features. But his eyes caught me, held me, deep brown, almost black in the streetlight, currently fixed on the child with an intensity that made my breath catch. "Papa!" The boy, Leo apparently, broke from my grip and ran to him. The man caught him, lifted him, and for a moment his entire demeanor shifted. He held the child with a gentleness that contradicted everything else about him, his hand cradling the back of Leo's head as he murmured something I couldn't hear. Then those dark eyes found me. I was still crouched behind the planter, rain-soaked and holding a bent umbrella like some kind of deranged knight. I probably looked insane. I definitely felt insane. My hands were shaking now that the adrenaline was fading, replaced by the delayed shock of what had just happened. "You." He said it like a statement, not a question, still holding his son. "You hit him. He was grabbing the kid. Your kid." I just reacted. One of the suited men approached and spoke quietly to him. I caught fragments. "O'Sullivan operative. Confirmed. We have him secure." The man, Leo's father, nodded once. His jaw was tight, a muscle working beneath the skin. He set Leo down carefully, kept one hand on his shoulder, and took 3 steps toward me. "You put yourself between my son and an armed man. I didn't know he was armed until after." The truth felt important somehow. I just saw someone trying to take a child. Most people would have run. He studied me with an unsettling focus, like he was cataloging every detail. My wet hair, my ruined dress, the umbrella still clutched in my white-knuckled grip, or called for help, or done anything except attack. I'm an architect. We solve problems. It was a ridiculous thing to say. I was babbling now, shock making me stupid. I saw a problem. I had a tool, basic logic. Something flickered in his expression. Amusement, maybe, or assessment. "What's your name?" "Lauren. Lauren Cole." "Anthony Ravellini." He said it like I should recognize it. I didn't, but I filed it away. "This is my son, Leo." I looked down at the boy, who was staring at me with huge eyes. He said something in what sounded like Italian, fast and urgent, tugging on his father's sleeve. Anthony responded in the same language, his voice softer. Then he switched back to English. "He says thank you. He says you were brave." He was braver. He didn't panic. I finally stood, my legs unsteady. "Is he okay? Are you okay, sweetheart?" Leo nodded, then surprised me by stepping closer. He said something else in Italian, longer this time, looking between me and his father. Anthony's expression shifted into something I couldn't read. "He wants to know if you're hurt." "I'm fine, just wet." I tried to smile, though my face felt frozen, and my umbrella might be done for. "I'll replace it." Anthony gestured to one of his men. "Marco, get the car. Miss Cole is coming with us." "That's not necessary. I can just grab a cab and—" "You just saved my son from an O'Sullivan operative." The way he said that name made it clear it meant something significant. "The street isn't safe right now. You're coming with us." It wasn't a request. Something about his tone made arguing seem pointless, possibly dangerous. Besides, Leo was still looking at me with those wide, trusting eyes, and walking away from a 6-year-old I'd just defended felt wrong on some fundamental level. The car that pulled up was even more impressive up close. Black, sleek, definitely bulletproof. Marco, the driver, opened the back door, and Anthony guided Leo inside before turning to me. "After you." I climbed in, immediately struck by the warmth and the scent of expensive leather. Leo was already buckled in the middle seat. Anthony slid in beside him, filling the space with his presence. As the car pulled away, I saw other vehicles following. Security, clearly. How many people traveled with this level of protection? What kind of man needed armed guards and bulletproof cars? "Where am I taking you?" Anthony asked. "Queens. I can give you the address." "You live alone?" The question should have felt invasive. Somehow it just felt practical. "Yes." He nodded, already typing something on his phone. Probably running a background check, I realized with a weird detachment. Normal people don't have the resources to run immediate background checks. Normal people don't have armed security details. Normal people's children don't get targeted by people with names like O'Sullivan operatives. "Papa." Leo spoke quietly, in English this time. He looked at me, then at his father, then back to me. "Can I ask her something?" In English, so she understands. Leo turned those serious eyes on me. 6 years old, but with the gravity of someone much older. Are you scared now? A little, I admitted, but more just confused. This has been a really strange night. You were on a date? He said it matter-of-factly. Your dress is pretty, like Christmas trees. I laughed, surprised by the observation. Thank you. The date didn't go well, though. Why not? Leo, Anthony said quietly. That's personal. It's okay. I looked at the boy. Something about his directness refreshing after Marcus's calculated rudeness. The man I was supposed to meet decided he didn't actually want to be there. So he left. That's rude. Leo frowned. Mama always said rudeness is when people forget kindness on purpose. The use of past tense didn't escape me. Mama, not mama, says. Anthony's expression shuddered completely. Your mama sounds like she was very wise, I said carefully. Leo nodded seriously. She died when I was 4. I still remember some things she said, though. My chest tightened. I'm glad you remember. Those are good things to keep. We rode in silence for a moment. The city passed outside, holiday lights blurring in the rain. I should have felt more anxious. Sitting in a car with strangers, heading into the unknown. Instead, I felt oddly calm. Maybe I was in shock. Maybe I'd officially lost it. Then Leo spoke again, his voice small but clear. Papa says we have to be careful all the time because bad people want to hurt him sometimes. That's why Marco and the others are always around. Leo, Anthony's voice held a warning. But she already knows now, doesn't she? Leo looked at his father with startling maturity. She saw the bad man. She helped me. So she's not a stranger anymore, right? Anthony studied his son, then looked at me. My line of work creates certain complications. Security is necessary. What line of work? I asked, though part of me already knew I didn't want the answer. Logistics? Import? Export? Supply chain management? He said it smoothly, but there was something underneath. A layer of truth he wasn't sharing. The O'Sullivans are competitors who don't always compete fairly. That was the understatement of the century, I was sure. And they target children? They target leverage. His voice went cold. My son is leverage. The car turned onto a quieter street. Through the rain-streaked windows, I could see we were heading toward a part of Manhattan I definitely couldn't afford to visit regularly. Towering buildings, doormen under lit awnings, the kind of real estate that showed up in architecture magazines. This isn't Queens, I said. No. We're going to my apartment first. You need dry clothes, something warm to drink. Then I'll have Marco take you wherever you need to go. I really don't need... Leo interrupted me, turning in his seat with sudden urgency. He looked at his father, said something in rapid Italian that I couldn't follow. Anthony responded, his voice patient but firm. Leo insisted. More Italian, gesturing at me. What's he saying? I asked. Anthony was quiet for a moment, his expression unreadable. Then he looked at me directly, those dark eyes assessing in a way that made me feel exposed. He's asking if you can be his new mother. The world seemed to stop. The rain, the car, the city outside, everything reduced to this moment. This question from a 6-year-old who'd just survived an attempted kidnapping. I don't think... I started. I told him that's not how things work, Anthony continued, his voice careful. But he seems convinced that anyone brave enough to hit a man with an umbrella would make an excellent parent. Despite everything, despite the absolute insanity of this entire evening, I laughed. Real laughter that came from somewhere genuine. Your son has interesting criteria for choosing family. He has good instincts. Anthony's eyes hadn't left my face. You didn't hesitate. When you saw danger, you didn't run. You moved toward it. That's rare. That's stupid, I corrected. I'm an architect, not a bodyguard. You're someone who acts when action is needed. He tilted his head slightly, still studying me. Tell me, Lauren Cole, do you scare easily? Tonight? Terrified. Generally? Not particularly. Good. He said it with finality, like I'd passed some test I didn't know I was taking. Because I think we need to talk about what happens next. 2 weeks had passed since Christmas night, and I'd almost convinced myself it had been some kind of fever dream. Almost. Then the email arrived with a meeting request from Ravellini Logistics, and the illusion shattered completely. The address led me to a building in Tribeca that probably appeared on Architectural Digest covers regularly. All glass and steel, the kind of modern design that made my professional heart skip beats. The lobby alone featured marble that cost more per square foot than my monthly rent. "Miss Cole," Marco appeared from nowhere, just like he had that night. "Mr. Ravellini is expecting you. 40th floor." The elevator was the kind that moved so smoothly you barely registered the ascent. When the doors opened, I stepped into a penthouse that took my breath away for all the wrong reasons. It was stunning, objectively. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Hudson, minimalist furniture in shades of gray and black, art that probably required insurance policies, but my architect's eye immediately cataloged the flaws. Single entry point, windows without obvious reinforcement, open floor plan that offered zero tactical advantage in a crisis. "You don't like it." Anthony emerged from what looked like a home office, wearing dark slacks and a white shirt with the sleeves rolled up. No tie. Somehow more intimidating than the suit. "It's beautiful," I said honestly. "It's also a death trap." His eyebrow lifted slightly. "Elaborate." I set my portfolio down and walked to the windows. One entry point means one exit. If someone blocks that elevator, you're trapped 40 floors up. These windows, gorgeous as they are, aren't ballistic glass. A skilled sniper from any of those buildings across the street would have clear sight lines. I turned to face him. "Your furniture arrangement creates what we call fatal funnels in tactical architecture. Narrow passages where you can't maneuver. And unless I'm missing something, you don't have a panic room or secondary escape route. You assessed all of that in 30 seconds? I'm good at my job, Mr. Ravellini." "Anthony." He moved closer, studying me with that same intensity from the car. "You refused the reward money I sent. I don't take payment for doing the right thing. Most people would have cashed the check and bought themselves something nice for Christmas." He gestured to a seating area. "Sit. We need to talk." I sat, keeping my posture professional despite the way he looked at me. Like I was a blueprint he was trying to read. "I have a problem," Anthony said, settling into the chair across from me. "Multiple problems, actually, but one you might be able to help with. I'm an architect, not a bodyguard. I'm aware. But you're also a woman who kept her head during an attempted kidnapping, who thinks tactically, and who my son hasn't stopped talking about for 2 weeks. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Child Protective Services has been investigating me. Anonymous complaint claiming Leo is in an unstable environment, that a single father in my line of work can't provide adequate care. That's ridiculous. He seemed well-adjusted, well cared for. You spent 20 minutes with him. CPS needs more convincing." His jaw tightened. "I have a business deal closing in 3 months. A legitimate port acquisition that will finally move my operations fully above board. The O'Sullivans want that port. They're using every tool they have to destabilize me, including threatening my custody of Leo." I was starting to understand. "You need to appear more stable, more family-oriented." "I need a wife." He said it bluntly, or at least the appearance of one. 2 years, fully compensated, separate bedrooms, a generous settlement when it ends. My first instinct was to laugh. My second was to be offended. "You want to hire me to play house? I want to hire you to provide Leo with the stable maternal figure CPS is looking for, and to help me secure my son's future." He pulled out a folder, slid it across the coffee table. "This is what I'm offering." I opened it. The number made my vision blur. More money than I'd make in 5 years. Maybe 10. "That's generous," I managed. "But I'm not interested in being anyone's decorative wife, real or fake." "Then what are you interested in?" I closed the folder and met his eyes. "I'm interested in doing the kind of work that matters. The kind of architecture that changes how people interact with space, that makes cities safer and more functional." I gestured around the penthouse. "Like I said, this place is gorgeous and completely tactically unsound. You have how many properties? 17 in the city, 8 in surrounding areas. All designed by people who prioritized aesthetics over security, I'm guessing." I stood, moving back to the windows. "You don't need a wife, Anthony. You need someone who can redesign your entire infrastructure to actually protect you and Leo. You need an architect who understands both form and function. You're proposing an alternative arrangement." I turned to face him. "A professional one." Hire me as your chief architect. I redesign all your properties with security as the primary consideration. I work on that port acquisition, make sure the infrastructure serves your legitimate business needs. And yes, I spend time with Leo, provide that stable presence CPS wants to see. But as an employee, not a fake spouse. That still requires you to be present, to live here, most likely. Then we draw up an employment contract. Housing is part of the compensation package. I maintain my professional autonomy, and you get someone who can actually solve your problems instead of just window dressing them. Anthony stood, closing the distance between us. He was tall, I'd noticed that before, but up close the height difference was more pronounced. I had to tilt my head back to maintain eye contact. You're negotiating with me, he said quietly. Most people don't negotiate with me. Most people aren't worth your time then. I held my ground. I'm offering you actual value. The question is whether you're smart enough to recognize it. Something shifted in his expression. Respect, maybe. Or the calculation of a man who just realized I wasn't going to be easy to control. The port, he said. I want to test your confidence. We go there tonight. You tell me what you see, and we'll discuss terms. Done. He smiled then, just slightly. You don't scare easily, do you, Lauren? I spent Christmas night between your son and an armed kidnapper. A business negotiation seems relatively safe by comparison. The port was exactly what I expected, and somehow worse. Anthony brought me in through the main entrance after dark, Marco driving while 2 other cars followed. The security presence alone told me how valuable this property was. The O'Sullivans have made 3 offers, Anthony explained as we walked the docks. Each one higher than the last. They want this location because it gives them access to every major shipping route on the East Coast. I studied the layout, the warehouses, the way cargo containers were arranged. My mind automatically cataloged the inefficiencies, the security vulnerabilities, the wasted space. Who designed this? I asked. The previous owner. He sold to me 6 months ago when his business failed. It failed because this design is deliberately terrible. I pointed to the main warehouse. Look at the loading dock placement. It creates blind spots where you can't monitor cargo coming and going. These container stacks, they're arranged to maximize hiding places, not efficiency. And your security cameras, see how they're positioned? They can be avoided by anyone who understands the angles. Anthony's expression darkened. You're saying the design was meant to facilitate smuggling. I'm saying whoever created this layout wanted you to fail. They built in vulnerabilities that make illegal activity easy and legitimate business hard. I pulled out my phone, taking photos. But I can fix it. Redesign the whole thing with proper sightlines, efficient cargo flow, and security that actually works. It'll require significant construction, probably shut down operations for a few weeks, but the result will be a port that supports legitimate logistics instead of undermining it. He watched me work, documenting everything, my mind already sketching solutions. When I finally looked up, he was studying me with that intense focus again. This is what you do, he said. You see structures and understand them completely. Buildings tell stories. This one was telling me it wanted you to fail. I met his eyes. I can make it tell a different story. Success, legitimacy, unshakable infrastructure. And my penthouse? I can redesign that too. Ballistic glass, secondary exits, panic room integrated so seamlessly your guests won't even notice. Leo would be safer. You would be safer. Anthony nodded slowly. 2 years. Full redesign of all my properties. You work as my chief architect. You spend time with Leo. You help me present the stable family image CPS needs to see. And I maintain full professional autonomy, I added. My designs, my decisions. You don't override me on structural or security issues. Agreed. He extended his hand. Do we have a deal, Miss Cole? I shook his hand, feeling the strength in his grip, the calluses that told me his hands did more than sign contracts. We have a deal, Mr. Ravellini. When do I start? Tonight. Marco will help you move whatever you need from your apartment. Leo has been asking about you every day. I think he'll be pleased to know you're staying. The penthouse was different when we returned. Lights on, the city spread out below like a carpet of stars. Anthony led me to a guest room that was larger than my entire queen's apartment. This is yours. Leo's room is next door. Mine is at the opposite end. Privacy for everyone. Where is Leo? Asleep. It's nearly 10, but he'll want to see you in the morning. Anthony paused at the door. Lauren, thank you. For this. For helping him that night. For agreeing to this arrangement. Thank you for respecting that I'm more than just a prop in your stability campaign. He smiled, genuine this time. You're definitely more than that. Good night. I spent an hour unpacking the essentials Marco had retrieved, my mind still racing with design possibilities. Then I heard it. A small sound from the next room. Crying, muffled but unmistakable. I didn't think. I moved to Leo's door, knocked softly, and pushed it open. He was sitting up in bed, tears streaking his face, clutching a stuffed elephant. When he saw me, his eyes went wide. Miss Lauren? Hey, sweetheart. I heard you crying. Are you okay? Bad dream. His voice was so small. Papa usually comes, but I think he didn't hear me. Do you want me to get him? Leo shook his head. Can you stay? Just for a little bit? I sat on the edge of his bed. Of course. What was the dream about? The bad man. From before. He came back. My chest tightened. Of course he was having nightmares. He'd survived a kidnapping attempt 2 weeks ago. He can't come back, Leo. Your papa and Marco and all the others. They make sure you're safe. And you. He looked at me with those serious eyes. Papa said you're staying now. Is that true? It's true. I'm going to be working for your papa, helping make all his buildings safer. Including this one. So the bad men can't get in? So the bad men can't get in. I confirmed. Leo was quiet for a moment. Then he asked, Can we build something? When I'm sad. Mama used to build things with me. We'd make towers or houses or forts. It made the sad smaller. What do you want to build? His face brightened slightly. A fort. A really big one. We spent the next hour constructing an elaborate fort using every pillow, blanket, and cushion in his room. Leo's instructions were surprisingly detailed, his little hands helping arrange the structure. By the time we finished, we'd created something that could have passed for architectural installation art. It's perfect, Leo declared, crawling inside. Will you stay until I fall asleep? Absolutely. I sat beside the fort while he settled in, his stuffed elephant tucked under his arm. Within minutes, his breathing evened out, peaceful for the first time since I'd entered the room. You're good with him. Anthony's voice came from the doorway, quiet so as not to wake Leo. He hasn't slept through the night since the incident. His therapist says it'll take time. He needed to feel safe, to have control over something. I looked at the fort. Building helps. Creating order out of chaos. Is that why you became an architect? Partially. I stood, following him out into the hallway. I like the idea that you can design safety into structures, that you can create spaces where people can just exist without fear. Anthony looked back at his son, sleeping peacefully in his makeshift fortress. I want that for him. A life without fear. Then we'll build it. I said simply. One structure at a time. 3 weeks of living in Anthony's penthouse had created a routine I hadn't expected. Mornings with Leo, reviewing blueprints over coffee while he built elaborate structures with his blocks. Afternoons consulting with contractors about the port redesign. Evenings where Anthony would return from whatever he did during the day, and the three of us would have dinner like some strange approximation of a family. Tonight was different. Tonight was the Metropolitan Museum Gala, and I was about to become officially public. The dress arrived that afternoon, delivered in a box that probably cost more than the contents. Emerald green silk that caught the light like water, cut in a way that was elegant without being revealing. A note in Anthony's precise handwriting. For tonight. The color suits you. I'd spent an hour getting ready, my hands steadier than I expected. This was just another performance. Another part of the job. Except when I looked in the mirror, I barely recognized myself. The woman staring back looked like she belonged in Anthony's world. You look like a princess, Leo announced from my doorway, already in his pajamas. Papa's going to think you're really pretty. Thank you, sweetheart. Are you okay staying with Marco tonight? Marco lets me stay up late, and we watch movies Papa says are too violent. He grinned conspiratorially. But don't tell Papa. Your secret's safe with me. Anthony was waiting in the living room, and I had to pause at the threshold. He wore a tuxedo that was probably custom-made, his dark hair styled back, looking every inch the dangerous man he was. When he saw me, his expression shifted into something I couldn't quite name. You approve? I asked, keeping my voice light. You look perfect. He moved closer, pulling a small box from his pocket. One more thing. Inside was a necklace, emerald set in platinum that probably required security to transport. Anthony, this is too much. You're appearing as my partner tonight. The O'Sullivans will be watching. CPS will hear about this. Everyone will be assessing whether we're legitimate. He moved behind me, fastening the necklace with surprisingly gentle fingers. We need to look like we belong together. The weight of the stone settled against my collarbone, cool and heavy. And do we? Belong together? Tonight we do. His hands lingered on my shoulders for a moment before he stepped back. Ready to face the lions? The Metropolitan Museum transformed for the gala looked like something from a film. Hundreds of guests in evening wear, champagne flowing, a string quartet playing near the Temple of Dender. The architecture alone was worth studying, but I was too focused on the social navigation ahead. Anthony's hand settled on the small of my back, possessive, but not constraining. Stay close. If you feel uncomfortable, tell me. We'd barely made it through the entrance when I saw him. Marcus, the lawyer from my disastrous blind date, holding court with a group of similarly polished professionals. His eyes found mine, then widened when he saw Anthony beside me. Well, this is unexpected, Marcus said, moving to intercept us. Lauren, right? From that Christmas thing. I almost didn't recognize you. His tone suggested I'd been upgraded from mediocre to merely adequate. Marcus, I kept my voice neutral. Enjoying the evening? Oh, you know these things. All about networking, making the right connections. He looked at Anthony with poorly disguised curiosity. I don't believe we've met. Anthony Ravellini. No handshake offered, no warmth in his voice. You know, Lauren, we had a brief encounter. Very brief. Marcus laughed, oblivious to the danger he was courting. Nothing serious. She's not really my type, to be honest. Though I see you've found someone who appreciates a more understated presence. I felt Anthony's hand tighten slightly on my back. Understated. You know, simple. Girl next door energy. Some men like that. Marcus was still smiling, completely unaware he'd just insulted me to one of the most dangerous men in the city. I prefer women with a bit more polish, more ambition. No offense, Lauren. None taken. I managed, though my face burned. Anthony pulled out his phone, typed something with his thumb, then looked back at Marcus with cold precision. What firm did you say you work for? Grayson and Mitchell. Senior associate, actually. We handle corporate litigation for some very high-profile clients. Interesting. Anthony's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, smiled without any humor, and slipped it back into his pocket. Not anymore, though. Marcus blinked. Excuse me? I just purchased Grayson and Mitchell. Well, the holding company that owns it. The acquisition closes in about 3 minutes. Anthony checked his watch. As the new owner, I'm implementing immediate restructuring, starting with terminating senior associates who lack basic professional courtesy. The color drained from Marcus's face. You can't be serious. Quite serious. You'll receive official notification Monday morning, but consider this your informal notice. Merry Christmas, Marcus. Anthony guided me away, leaving Marcus standing frozen in the middle of the gala. You didn't have to do that, I said quietly once we were out of earshot. Yes, I did. Nobody insults you in front of me. His voice was matter of fact. He's lucky I stopped at his career. We moved through the crowd, Anthony introducing me to various business associates with careful precision. I was his architectural consultant, his partner in the port development, the woman who'd changed his perspective on infrastructure design. Each introduction felt choreographed, a performance for an audience I couldn't entirely see. Then we danced. The quartet had shifted to something slower, couples filling the space near the temple. Anthony's hand found mine, his other settling at my waist. and we moved into the rhythm with unexpected ease. "You dance well," I observed. My mother insisted. She said a man who couldn't dance was a man who couldn't lead. His expression softened slightly. "She died when I was 17. Leo never got to meet her. I'm sorry. She would have liked you. She valued people who acted instead of just talked." He spun me gently, the emerald dress catching light. "You're doing well tonight. Better than I expected. Did you expect me to embarrass you? I expected you to be yourself, which happens to be exactly what this situation needs." His phone buzzed against my back where his hand rested. He glanced down, read something, and his entire demeanor changed. The warmth vanished, replaced by cold calculation. "What is it?" I asked. "Marco confirms O'Sullivan presence. At least 6 of them scattered through the event." His eyes scanned the crowd. "They're here for a reason." I followed his gaze, trying to identify threats among the elegantly dressed guests. That's when I noticed it. The emergency exit sign near the east entrance, the one pointing toward what should be a corridor leading to the street. "Anthony, that map is wrong." "What?" "The emergency exit map. I studied the Metropolitan's architectural plans when I was in grad school. That corridor doesn't lead where that sign indicates." I kept my voice low, kept smiling like we were having a normal conversation. "Someone altered it. If there's an evacuation, people will be funneled into the wrong area." His grip on me tightened. "Are you certain?" "I'm an architect. I know this building's layout. That sign has been deliberately changed. I noticed them then, positioned strategically. Men in suits that fit too well, standing near the false exits, watching the crowd with predatory patience. There, and there, they're waiting near the wrong exits. If they cause a panic, everyone rushes to those exits." Anthony's mind was already working through the scenario. "They can target specific people in the chaos, or worse. We need to leave. Quietly, without triggering the evacuation they're clearly planning. The front entrance is too exposed." "Then we don't use the front entrance." I pulled back slightly, meeting his eyes. "I know this building. I know the original architecture, before the modern renovations. There are service corridors, maintenance access, staff passages from the 1800s that most people don't even know exist. Can you get us out without being noticed? Follow my lead, and trust my engineering." We separated from the dance floor casually, as if heading toward the refreshments. Instead, I guided Anthony along the perimeter, staying close to the walls where shadows offered cover. I found what I was looking for near the Roman statuary, a service door marked staff only that most guests wouldn't even register. "This way." I pushed through, Anthony close behind me. The corridor beyond was narrow, lit by harsh fluorescents that contrasted sharply with the gala's elegant atmosphere. I moved quickly, my heels clicking on tile, following a mental map I'd studied years ago. "Where are we going?" Anthony asked. "Original maintenance access." The museum was designed with multiple hidden passages for staff to move exhibits and supplies without disturbing guests. Most were sealed during renovations, but the structural bones are still there. And I turned left at an intersection, then right, navigating by memory and architectural logic. We passed through what looked like storage areas, then down a set of stairs that belonged to another century. The walls changed from modern drywall to original stone, and I knew we were in the oldest part of the structure. "You really do know every building," Anthony observed. "I really do." We reached a heavy door, and I pushed it open carefully. Cool night air hit us, along with the sounds of the city. We'd emerged in a narrow alley behind the museum, away from the main entrance where valets and guests congregated. Anthony immediately pulled out his phone. "Marco, we're in the service alley, east side. Pick us up now." He looked at me while he waited. "How did you know that route would work?" Historical architecture was my specialty. I wrote my thesis on integrating modern security needs with historical preservation. I pulled my wrap tighter against the cold. "Old buildings have secrets. You just have to know how to read them." Marco arrived within 2 minutes, the black car sliding into the alley with precision. We climbed in, and Anthony immediately started issuing orders to his security team through his phone. When we reached his building, Marco pulled into the underground garage and stopped near Anthony's personal vehicle. That's when I saw it. "Anthony, don't get out yet." "What?" I pointed to the underside of his car, visible from our angle. A small device, clearly not part of the original design, attached near the rear axle. That wasn't there this morning when we left. Anthony's expression went ice cold. He gestured to Marco, who approached the car carefully. After a moment, Marco pulled the device free and brought it back to our vehicle. GPS tracker, Marco confirmed. Active signal, professional grade. Anthony took it, examined it with controlled fury. Someone on my team placed this. Someone with access to my personal garage, my personal vehicle. There's a traitor in your organization, I said quietly. Someone who knew we'd be at the gala, who knew which car we'd take, who had the opportunity to plant this. Everyone who works for me has been vetted. Thoroughly. Then someone got to them. Or someone's been playing a longer game than you realized. I looked at the tracker in his hand. The O'Sullivans didn't just show up at the gala hoping to cause chaos. They knew you'd be there because someone told them. They altered that emergency map because someone with inside knowledge gave them building access. This isn't random, Anthony. Someone close to you is feeding them information. He was quiet for a long moment, staring at the device. When he finally spoke, his voice was carefully controlled. Marco, take Lauren to the Catskills property. The secure one, the one only 5 people know about. I'm not going anywhere, I protested. We need to figure out who... You became a target the moment you walked into that gala on my arm, the moment you appeared in public as my partner. He looked at me, and for the first time I saw genuine fear in his eyes. They'll use you to get to me, Lauren. I won't let that happen. So you're sending me away while you investigate. I'm keeping you safe while I handle this. There's a difference. And Leo? Leo goes with you. Both of you. Away from the city. Protected by people I trust absolutely. He held my gaze. Please, don't fight me on this. I wanted to argue. I wanted to insist I could help. That running solved nothing. But I also understood tactical retreat. Knew when staying was bravery, and when it was stupidity. How long? A few days. A week at most. Just until I identify the leak and eliminate the threat. He reached out, touched my cheek briefly. You saved us tonight. Let me return the favor. Marco drove us back upstairs to collect Leo and some essentials. Within an hour, we were in a different vehicle heading north out of the city. I watched Manhattan disappear behind us, the skyline glittering against the night sky. Leo was asleep in the seat beside me, his head resting on my shoulder, completely trusting. Anthony had stayed behind to begin his investigation, to root out whoever had betrayed him. And I was heading into isolation with his son, wondering if the man I'd agreed to work for was about to wage a war I'd only just begun to understand. 6 weeks had passed since the gala, since the safe house in the Catskills where Leo and I had spent 3 days building snow forts while Anthony dismantled his organization looking for the traitor. He'd found 3 low-level security personnel who'd been bought off by the O'Sullivans, feeding them information about schedules and movements. None of them had been the primary leak, the one who'd had access to everything. But their removal had made things safer. Temporarily. Now I stood in the middle of my construction site. Hard hat secured, blueprints rolled under my arm, surrounded by the skeletal framework of what would become a mixed-use development in the financial district. My project. My design. Anthony had funded it as part of our arrangement, and I'd thrown myself into the work with singular focus. Miss Cole, we need your approval on the foundation reinforcement. My site manager, a gruff man named Patterson who'd initially been skeptical of a 28-year-old woman running a multi-million-dollar project, now deferred to me on every decision. Respect earned through competence felt better than respect given through fear. I examined the specs he'd brought, checking the steel placement against my calculations. This needs adjustment. The load-bearing capacity here isn't accounting for potential seismic activity. I want additional cross-bracing installed before we pour concrete. That'll add 3 days to the schedule. 3 days now prevents catastrophic failure later. Make it happen. He nodded, taking the marked-up plans back to his crew. I loved this part. The problem-solving. The way abstract designs became concrete reality. The knowledge that every decision I made would affect how people lived and worked in this space for decades. You're in your element. Anthony's voice came from behind me, and I turned to find him picking his way across the construction site in what had to be $1,000 suit. completely inappropriate footwear for a work zone. But somehow he made it look intentional. "What are you doing here?" "I thought you had meetings all afternoon. Finished early. Thought I'd see how the project was progressing." He stopped beside me, surveying the construction with an assessing eye. "It's impressive. The way you've integrated security features into the design without making it obvious. That's the point. Good security architecture shouldn't announce itself." I gestured to the framework rising around us. "Every entrance has dual access points. Every floor has multiple egress routes. The elevator shafts are reinforced to serve as emergency shelter if needed. But from the outside, it just looks like elegant modern design. Like the port redesign. Exactly like the port." We'd completed that project 2 weeks ago, and the results had exceeded even my expectations. Cargo flow had increased by 40%, security incidents had dropped to 0, and Anthony's legitimate business interests were finally starting to overshadow his reputation. Speaking of which, did the regulatory approval come through? This morning. "The port acquisition is official as of 3 p.m. today." He said it with satisfaction. "The O'Sullivans made one last attempt to outbid me, but the review board chose my proposal. Better infrastructure, better security, better for the city. Because I designed better infrastructure." I couldn't help the pride in my voice. "Because you designed better infrastructure," he agreed. "Which is why I wanted to show you the preliminary plans for the new warehouse facility. I need your assessment before I approve construction." We moved to the construction trailer I'd converted into a temporary office. Inside, away from the noise and dust, Anthony spread architectural drawings across the makeshift desk. I studied them, immediately identifying issues. Who designed this? The firm the O'Sullivans recommended before I cut ties with them. These plans were drawn up 6 months ago, before you came on board. It's terrible. I pointed to several areas. Look at this loading dock configuration. It creates blind spots everywhere. And this warehouse interior layout? It's designed for concealment, not efficiency. Whoever made these plans wanted you to have operational problems. That's what I suspected. Anthony's expression hardened. Further evidence that this rivalry goes deeper than business competition. A loud metallic groan cut through our conversation. We both froze. "That's not normal," I said, already moving toward the door. "Lauren, wait." I pushed outside just in time to see the crane arm beginning to collapse. Not a mechanical failure. The angle was wrong. The way the cable had been severed too clean. This was sabotage. "Everyone get back!" I screamed at the workers below. "Move now!" The crane arm swung toward us in what felt like slow motion, but was probably only seconds. I calculated trajectories automatically, identified the impact zone, realized with cold clarity that the construction trailer was directly in the path of destruction. I grabbed Anthony's arm and pulled. "The maintenance tunnel. Now." "What maintenance tunnel?" "The one I had installed last week for utility access." "Come on!" We ran, my boots finding purchase on loose gravel as the crane's shadow grew larger overhead. I'd designed a service tunnel system into the foundation work, partially for legitimate utility purposes, partially because I always designed backup systems into everything. The entrance was 50 feet from the trailer, a steel door set into what looked like a temporary retaining wall. I yanked it open just as the crane arm crashed down behind us. The sound was deafening, metal shrieking against concrete, the trailer crumpling like paper. I shoved Anthony through the door and dove in after him, slamming it shut. Then the ground shook. The impact must have destabilized the excavated area above us. Dirt and debris rained down, and I heard the sickening sound of structural collapse. The lights went out instantly, emergency battery backups failing to kick in. Complete darkness surrounded us. "Lauren?" Anthony's voice came from very close, tight with controlled panic. "I'm here. Are you hurt?" "No." "What just happened?" "The crane collapse triggered a partial cave-in. We're in the service tunnel I designed for the foundation utilities. The structure should hold. It's reinforced concrete rated for twice the load currently on it." I pulled out my phone, activating the flashlight. The beam illuminated a narrow space, maybe 4 feet wide, stretching into darkness. "We're safe." "Safe." He repeated the word like it was foreign. In the phone's glow, I could see his face. Pale, jaw clenched, eyes too wide. "We're trapped underground. We're sheltered underground. There's a difference. I swept the light around, assessing our situation. Debris had collapsed both ends of our section of tunnel, but the walls and ceiling were intact. The rescue crew will dig us out within the hour. This tunnel appears on all my site plans. They'll know exactly where to find us. Anthony didn't respond. I looked at him more carefully and realized he wasn't just scared. He was barely holding it together. His breathing had gone shallow and rapid, his hands clenched into fists, his entire body rigid with the effort of maintaining control. "Anthony, look at me. I can't." His voice cracked. "I can't be here. I need to get out." Claustrophobia. The weakness he'd mentioned once in passing. The fear he'd never fully explained. And here we were, trapped in a confined space underground. And the most dangerous man I knew was falling apart. "Anthony," I used my firmest voice, the one I used with contractors who questioned my judgment. "You need to listen to me right now." "Can you do that?" "Lauren, I can't breathe. The walls are structural grade concrete reinforced with steel rebar. They're not moving. I designed them to support 10,000 pounds per square foot. The current load is maybe a tenth of that." I moved closer, forcing him to focus on me instead of the space. "Look at my face. Don't look at the walls. Look at me." His eyes found mine, wild with panic. "Good. Now breathe with me. In for 4 counts. I demonstrated, exaggerating my breathing so he could see it. "Hold for 4. Out for 4. With me now." "I can't." "Yes, you can. You trust my engineering, don't you? You trusted my port design. You trusted my security assessments. So trust this. I'm telling you this space is safe. I built it to be safe. Now breathe." I watched him struggle, watched him fight against the irrational terror that had seized him. Slowly, painfully, he managed to sync his breathing with mine. 4 counts in. Hold. 4 counts out. That's it. Keep going. I kept my voice steady, authoritative. This tunnel is 8 feet long, 4 feet wide, 6 feet high. I know because I specified every dimension. The concrete was poured 3 days ago, which means it's reached 70% of its full strength. By the time it fully cures in 4 more days, it'll be strong enough to support a building. How do you know all that? His breathing was still too fast, but slower than before. Because I'm an architect, and I know everything about my buildings. Every measurement, every material, every structural capacity. I swept the phone light around again, deliberately methodical. "See this ceiling? That's a continuous pour, no seams, no weak points. These walls are 18 inches thick. Nothing is collapsing. Nothing is going to hurt you. People die in cave-ins. People die in poorly designed spaces with inadequate structural support. This is not that." I touched his arm, felt him trembling. "I need you to trust me, Anthony. The same way you trusted me to redesign your port, to secure your buildings, to keep Leo safe that night in the park. Trust that I know what I'm doing." He was quiet for a long moment, still breathing hard but more controlled. "I hate this. I know. I hate that you're seeing me like this." "Like what? Human?" I sat down against the wall, tugging him down beside me. "Everyone has fears, Anthony. Yours just happens to be confined spaces. Mine is heights, if you're curious. I design skyscrapers, but I can't go past the 10th floor without feeling sick. You never mentioned that, because it doesn't define me. Your claustrophobia doesn't define you either." I kept the phone light pointed away from our faces, giving him shadows to hide in. "Tell me what triggered it. The fear, I mean. There's usually a cause." He was silent so long I thought he wouldn't answer. "Then, when I was 12, my father's enemies locked me in a shipping container for 2 days. Punishment for something he'd done. It was completely dark, no food, no water. I could hear them outside, laughing. I thought I'd die there." My chest tightened. "Anthony, I'm so sorry. My father eventually negotiated my release, but by then I'd already broken. I've hated enclosed spaces ever since. Small rooms, elevators, anywhere I can't see an exit." His breathing hitched again. "This is my nightmare made real. Then let's unmake it." I shifted position, directing the phone light toward the debris blocking the tunnel exit. I'm going to talk you through the engineering while we wait for rescue. Every calculation, every design decision, every reason why this space is safe. Will that help? I don't know. We're going to try anyway. I started explaining the tunnel's construction, the soil composition tests I'd run before designing the foundation, the load-bearing calculations that determined wall thickness. I talked about concrete compression strength and steel tensile properties, and the redundant safety factors I built into everything. Slowly, gradually, Anthony's breathing normalized. He started asking questions, technical ones about construction methodology and material science. I answered each one thoroughly, grateful for my education, for my obsessive attention to detail, for every boring lecture on structural engineering I'd ever sat through. 40 minutes passed before we heard voices above us. "Miss Cole, Mr. Ravellini, can you hear us?" "We're here," I shouted back. "We're both uninjured. The tunnel structure is intact. We're digging through now. 15 minutes, maybe 20. Anthony exhaled slowly. "We're getting out. We're getting out." I looked at him in the dim light. "You did it. You survived your worst fear. I survived because you were here." His voice was raw. "Because you knew exactly what to say, how to ground me. I've never—" He stopped, seemed to struggle with words. "I've never let anyone see me that vulnerable. Maybe you should more often." "Vulnerability isn't weakness, Anthony. In my world it is. Then your world is wrong." The rescue crew broke through 12 minutes later, and fresh air and daylight flooded the tunnel. I'd never been so grateful for open sky. They pulled us out one at a time, medics immediately trying to check us over. I waved them off, more concerned with the crane collapse. Patterson was there, covered in dust, his expression grim. "Sniper, Miss Cole." We found the position across the street, building under renovation. Clean shot to the crane cable. This was deliberate. "Anyone hurt?" I demanded. "Minor injuries. Nothing serious. You screaming that warning gave everyone time to clear the zone." He looked at Anthony. "Someone tried to kill you, sir." No question about it. Anthony's face had gone cold. All traces of his earlier vulnerability erased. He pulled out his phone, already issuing orders. "Marco, lock down all my properties. I want locations on every employee, every contractor, everyone who had access to this site. Someone placed a sniper, which means someone gave them the schedule." I watched him transform back into the dangerous man I'd first met, and something in my chest ached. He'd let me see him break, and now he was rebuilding the walls higher than before. When he finished his calls, I pulled him aside. "Anthony, I need to get you somewhere safe." This was an escalation. They're not even trying to hide the attempts anymore. "Stop. Lauren, they tried to drop a crane on us. They almost succeeded. I can't—" "Anthony, stop." I grabbed his arms, forced him to look at me. "You're doing it again, trying to push me away to protect me. Because you need protection. What I need is for you to stop treating me like I'm fragile." My voice came out harder than intended. "I pulled you into that tunnel. I kept you calm during a panic attack. I saved your life today, the same way I saved Leo's life on Christmas. When are you going to stop seeing me as someone who needs protecting and start seeing me as someone who can protect you?" He stared at me, something shifting in his expression. "You did save me. Not just physically. You talked me through the worst fear I've ever had. No one's ever done that before. Maybe no one ever tried, because I never let them." He reached up, touched my face with surprising gentleness. "I've built my entire life around control, around never showing weakness, never depending on anyone. And then you walked into my life and dismantled everything I thought I knew about safety. Is that a bad thing? I don't know yet." His thumb traced my cheekbone, leaving a streak of dust. "But I know I don't want you to go. Even though every tactical instinct says I should send you away, put distance between us. I don't want you to leave. Then I won't. They'll keep trying to hurt you, to use you against me. Let them try." I held his gaze. "I'm not running, Anthony. Not from the O'Sullivans, not from whoever's working with them, and definitely not from whatever this is between us." He kissed me then. Not rough or possessive like I might have expected, but soft, almost reverent, like I was something precious he'd found and wasn't sure how to hold. When we broke apart, I could see something had changed in his eyes. Not just attraction, though that was there. Respect. Real, genuine respect. "We should go," he said quietly. "Get checked by medical, debrief with security, figure out next steps. All very practical. But tonight," he kept his hand on my face, "tonight I want to talk. Really talk. No business, no contracts, no tactical discussions. Just us." "Just us," I agreed. As we walked toward the waiting cars, I caught sight of my reflection in a truck's side mirror, covered in dust, hard hat askew, completely disheveled. And behind me, Anthony Ravellini looked equally destroyed, his expensive suit ruined, his perfect control shattered. We looked like survivors. We looked like partners. We looked like something that might actually work if we could both be brave in facing what scared us most. 1 week after the construction site attack, we were somewhere I'd never been. The Catskills safe house sat at the end of a road that barely qualified as such, surrounded by pine trees heavy with snow. Anthony had insisted on the isolation after discovering that the sniper had been hired through a contact within his own organization. Not Franco, not yet identified, but someone close gathering intelligence for the O'Sullivans. The house itself was deceptively simple from the outside, a log cabin structure that blended into the mountain landscape. Inside was different. Reinforced walls, communications equipment that probably violated several federal regulations, enough supplies to survive a siege. I'd spent the first day cataloging the security features, my architect's mind automatically assessing structural integrity and tactical advantages. Now, a week in, the safe house had become something unexpected, a refuge not just from physical danger, but from the constant performance our arrangement required. Here, with snow falling steadily outside and no audience to convince, Anthony and I existed in a strange limbo between professional partnership and something neither of us had quite named. "Your move." Anthony gestured to the chessboard between us, fireplace crackling nearby. I studied the pieces, considering strategy. We'd been playing for 2 hours, neither of us willing to concede defeat. "You're trying to trap my queen. Obviously. The question is whether you'll sacrifice her to save your king." "False choice. I can save both." I moved my knight, creating an escape route he hadn't anticipated. Anthony's expression shifted into something like admiration. "You see 3 moves ahead." "I'm an architect. I always see 3 moves ahead." I leaned back in my chair, studying him across the board. "It's why I know you're stalling." "Stalling?" "You've been investigating Franco for a week. You know he's the leak, or at least you strongly suspect it. But you're here instead of confronting him." I gestured around the cabin. "Why?" He was quiet for a long moment, firelight casting shadows across his face. "Because the moment I confirm it, I have to act. And acting means choosing between my brother and my son's safety. Between blood and loyalty. That's not really a choice, though. Is it? It should be harder than it is." His voice carried an edge of pain. "Franco and I, we built this together. After our father died, we were supposed to share leadership. But the old guard chose me, and Franco never forgave that. So he's punishing you by helping the O'Sullivans destroy everything you've built. He's punishing me by threatening Leo." Anthony's jaw tightened. "That I can't forgive. Family loyalty ends when children become weapons." Leo was asleep upstairs, exhausted from building an elaborate snow fort with the 2 security personnel Anthony trusted most. Former Navy SEALs he'd known for 15 years. Men who'd never met Franco, never had contact with the parts of the organization that had been compromised. If we were safe anywhere, it was here. My laptop sat on the table nearby, port redesign files open. I'd been working remotely, finalizing specifications while Anthony coordinated his investigation through encrypted channels. The work kept me grounded, reminded me I had purpose beyond this strange domestic situation. Anthony's phone rang. He glanced at the screen, then at me. "I need to take this. Business." "Of course." He moved toward the back office while I turned my attention back to the chessboard, analyzing the position. 3 moves to checkmate if he didn't see my strategy. 4 if he did. His phone rang again. Different ringtone. The the personal line he kept for family and close associates. It was sitting on the table where he'd left it, vibrating insistently. I hesitated. Answering someone else's phone crossed boundaries our carefully professional arrangement had maintained, but the ringing persisted, and something about the urgency felt important. I picked it up. "Hello?" Well, a woman's voice, cold and amused. "You must be the architect. The little bird Anthony's been hiding in his nest." Every instinct screamed danger. "Who is this?" "Tell your dear Anthony that we already have everything we need." Franco was very generous with information. Port designs, access codes, offshore account numbers. Everything. The woman's laugh was sharp. "The port will be ours in 72 hours. There's nothing he can do to stop it now." The line went dead. I sat frozen, the phone still pressed to my ear, my mind racing through implications. Franco. It was confirmed. Anthony's brother had sold him out completely, had handed the O'Sullivans everything they needed to destroy his legitimate business interests. "Lauren?" Anthony emerged from the office, saw my expression, moved quickly to my side. "What happened?" "Someone called. A woman. She said Franco gave them everything. The port designs, the accounts, all of it." I handed him the phone, my hand steadier than I felt. "She said they'll have the port in 72 hours. He checked the call log, his face going carefully blank in that way that meant he was barely controlling fury. "O'Sullivan contact line. They wanted us to know. Wanted to gloat." He set the phone down with deliberate care. "Franco, I'd hoped I was wrong. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry for me. Be sorry for him." Anthony's voice was ice. He chose this. He chose to betray not just me, but Leo, his own nephew. I stood, moved closer, uncertain what comfort looked like for a man whose brother had just committed the ultimate betrayal. "Tell me about him." "About Franco. Not the traitor, but before, when you were brothers." Anthony was silent so long I thought he wouldn't answer. Then he moved to the window, staring out at snow-covered darkness. He was 3 years older. After our father died, he thought he'd inherit leadership. He'd been groomed for it, trained, prepared. But the old families, they chose me instead. Why? Because I was willing to go legitimate, to transition the business into something sustainable. Franco wanted to maintain tradition, keep doing things the way our father had. The council saw me as the future, and him as the past. His reflection in the window looked haunted. I should have found a way to include him. Should have given him real authority, not just token positions. But I was young and arrogant, and convinced I knew best. So he resented you. He hated me. Hid it well, played the loyal brother. But the hate was always there. I just didn't want to see it. Anthony turned from the window. My ex-wife, Leo's mother. She left when she discovered what the family business really was. Not logistics and import-export, but everything underneath. The money laundering, the protection rackets, all of it. That's when you decided to go legitimate. That's when I realized I was becoming my father. Building an empire on foundations that would eventually destroy my son, the way they'd destroyed me. His expression was raw. She took the divorce settlement, signed away custody, and disappeared. Leo was 2 years old. He doesn't remember her. Not really. Just stories I tell him about a woman who couldn't handle our reality. That's not fair to her. Or to you. Fair doesn't matter. What matters is that Leo knows his mother chose money over him, and I've spent every day since proving I'd choose him over everything. Anthony's voice cracked slightly. Including my brother, apparently. I closed the distance between us, taking his hands. They were cold, despite the fire's warmth. You're not choosing Leo over Franco. Franco already made his choice when he sided with people who tried to kidnap your son. When he sold out the port project that would legitimize everything you've built. He chose his resentment over family. I know. Knowing doesn't make it easier. It's not supposed to be easy. If it were, you'd be the kind of man who doesn't deserve Leo's trust. I squeezed his hands. Anthony, I need you to hear something. I'm not here because of the money, the contract, the compensation, the projects. Those are all reasons I agreed to this arrangement, but they're not why I stayed. Why did you stay? Because Leo asked me to help him build a fort that first night. And you let me. Because you trusted me with the port redesign even though I criticized everything. Because you let me see you panic in that tunnel. And didn't hate me for witnessing your fear. I met his eyes directly. I stayed. Because you gave me purpose beyond designing buildings. You let me build something that actually matters. A family. His hands tightened on mine. This wasn't supposed to be real. It was supposed to be a business arrangement that benefited us both. I know. I've been trying not to feel this. Whatever this is. His voice dropped lower. Because everyone I trust eventually leaves. My father died. My mother died. My wife left. And now my brother betrayed me. Caring about people just means giving them power to destroy you. Or giving them the chance to save you. I moved closer. Closing the last space between us. I pulled you out of that tunnel, Anthony. I kept you breathing when panic was drowning you. I'm not running from whatever this is between us. The question is whether you're brave enough to stop running too. He kissed me then. And it was different from before. Not gentle or exploratory, but desperate. Like he was trying to prove something to himself. I kissed him back with equal intensity, pouring everything I couldn't quite articulate into the contact. When we broke apart, we were both breathing hard. 72 hours, he said finally. That's how long we have before Franco completes the transfer. I need to get back to Manhattan, access the main servers, block the transaction before it's finalized. Then we go back. Not we. Me. You and Leo stay here where it's safe. Anthony, please. He cupped my face with both hands. I just told you everyone I care about leaves or gets hurt. Let me protect you. Let me know you're both here, safe, while I handle this. I wanted to argue. Every instinct said we were stronger together, that splitting up was tactical stupidity. But I also understood his need to shield the people he loved from the violence he was about to unleash. The security team here. You trust them completely? James and Carter served with me in the Marines before I took over the family business. They've never worked with Franco. Never even met him. They're loyal to me personally, not to the organization. His thumb traced my cheekbone. They'll protect you both with their lives. 72 hours. You confront Franco, stop the transfer, come back. That's the plan. And then what? After you've saved the port, eliminated the threat, what happens to us? Anthony was quiet for a long moment. I don't know. I've never let anyone this close before. Never let myself imagine a future that included another person who might stay. He kissed my forehead gently. But I want to find out. If you'll wait for me to figure out how. I'll wait. We spent the next hour planning logistics. Anthony would leave at dawn, take the helicopter despite the weather. I'd continue working remotely, keep Leo occupied and safe, wait for the all clear. Simple, straightforward. Absolutely nothing that could go wrong with a plan this dependent on everything going right. Leo came downstairs, rubbing sleep from his eyes. Papa? I heard voices. Come here, Piccolo. Anthony scooped him up despite the boy's 6 years making him almost too big for it. I need to go back to the city for a few days. Business. But Lauren will be here with you, and James and Carter. Is it the bad people again? I'm making sure the bad people can't hurt us anymore. Anthony kissed his son's hair. Will you be brave for me? Help Lauren. Listen to James and Carter. Be the strong boy I know you are. Leo nodded seriously. I'll protect Lauren. Like she protected me that night. That's my boy. Anthony set him down, ruffled his hair. Now back to bed. Big day of snow forts tomorrow. After Leo went upstairs, Anthony turned back to me. If anything happens, nothing will happen. If it does. If Franco has more resources than I anticipate, if the O'Sullivans make a move I don't predict. He pulled an envelope from his jacket pocket. Everything is in here. Account information, legal documents, custody arrangements. You become Leo's guardian if I don't come back. Anthony, don't. I need to know he'll be safe. That someone who actually loves him will be there. He pressed the envelope into my hands. Promise me. I promise. But you're coming back. I'm coming back. He agreed. Because I have a lot more to lose now than I did 3 months ago. Dawn came too quickly. I stood at the window watching the helicopter lift off through falling snow. Anthony's face visible for a moment before the aircraft banked and disappeared into gray sky. James and Carter had confirmed the route was clear, weather manageable, ETA to Manhattan 90 minutes. Leo pressed against my side, watching his father leave. He always comes back. He always comes back, I echoed, hoping I was telling the truth. We spent the day building elaborate structures in the snow, while I tried not to check my phone every 5 minutes. Anthony texted once to confirm arrival, once more to say he was meeting with his technology team. Nothing after that. I told myself he was busy, focused, dealing with the crisis. I told myself there was nothing to worry about. The lie felt thin even to me. The call from Anthony came at 3 a.m, pulling me from restless sleep in the safe house. His voice was tight, controlled. I'm back in Manhattan. We need to move now. I was already awake. Had been for hours, really, watching snow accumulate against the windows while Leo slept peacefully down the hall. James and Carter were on rotation, one watching monitors, one patrolling the perimeter. Everything secure. Everything according to plan. What's the situation? Franco scheduled the asset transfer for 8 a.m., Swiss banking hours. That gives us 5 hours to access the central servers, identify how he's routing the transaction, and block it before it completes. A pause. I need you here. Your architect credentials give you system access he doesn't know about. The network infrastructure you designed, the security protocols, he never paid attention to that level of detail. I'm on my way. Lauren. His voice softened fractionally. If this goes wrong, if Franco has more backup than I anticipate, I need you to promise me something. Don't. Promise me you'll protect Leo. The custody documents are filed. The lawyers have everything. If I don't come back, you take him somewhere Franco can never find him. Somewhere the O'Sullivans have no reach. You're coming back. We both are. That's the only acceptable outcome. I kept my voice firm. Architect presenting to difficult clients firm. Tell Marco I need extraction in 30 minutes. And Anthony, we're going to win this. The helicopter ride to Manhattan was brutal. Wind shear making every minute feel like the aircraft might simply give up and fall. I spent the flight reviewing network diagrams on my tablet, tracing the digital architecture I'd built into Anthony's systems. Franco would be looking for obvious blocks, IT team interventions, legal freezes. He wouldn't be looking for an architect with root access to building management systems that happened to integrate with financial servers. We landed on Anthony's building roof at 4:15 a.m. Marco escorted me down to the executive floor where Anthony waited, surrounded by 3 men I recognized from security briefings. His inner circle, the ones who'd never worked closely with Franco. Show me what you need, I said without preamble. He led me to a conference room converted into a war room. Multiple monitors displayed network traffic, security camera feeds, and what looked like financial tracking software. Franco's in the building. Came in 2 hours ago, accessed the server room with his executive credentials. He's been in there since. Doing what? Setting up the transfer protocols. He needs physical access to bypass certain security measures. Once he initiates the sequence at 8 a.m., the assets route through a series of shell companies before landing in an O'Sullivan trust account. By the time regulatory agencies track it, the money's already been laundered through 3 countries. I studied the network map. He's using the primary financial server, the one in the climate-controlled room on 38. Correct. Which means he doesn't know about the backup system. I pulled up a different schematic. When I redesigned your infrastructure, I insisted on redundant everything, including a mirror server that shadows every financial transaction in real time. It's housed in what looks like a building management closet on 40. Anthony's expression shifted into something like hope. Can you access it? I designed it. Of course I can access it. I was already typing, pulling up administrative interfaces. But we need to physically get to that room. If Franco's monitoring network traffic, he'll see any remote intervention. We need to be on site, make the changes locally, make him think everything's proceeding normally until the moment it isn't. Then we go now. The 40th floor was technically under renovation. My urban development project extending into Anthony's corporate headquarters. That gave us cover, a reason to be there if anyone questioned it. We took the service elevator, Marco and 2 other security personnel flanking us. The building management room was exactly where I'd specified it during construction, tucked behind what looked like utility access. I used my architect keycard, the the one that opened maintenance areas throughout the building, and we slipped inside. Banks of servers hummed in climate-controlled precision. I found the terminal I needed, logged in with credentials Franco had never known existed, and started working. "What are you doing?" Anthony asked quietly. "Creating a digital trap. Franco's transfer protocol expects certain responses from the banking interface. I'm setting up a mirror transaction that will appear to complete successfully on his end, but actually routes everything into a regulatory holding account. The moment he initiates, every federal banking watchdog gets an automatic alert about suspicious activity." My fingers flew across the keyboard. "He'll think he succeeded right up until federal agents walk through his door." "How long?" 20 minutes to set up the architecture. Then we wait for him to trigger it himself. Anthony watched me work, and I could feel the tension radiating off him. His brother, blood family, about to be destroyed by his own greed and betrayal. He made this choice, I said without looking up. The moment he decided to threaten Leo, he stopped being your brother and started being just another enemy. I know. Doesn't make it easier. The system configurations took 18 minutes. By the time I finished, sweat dampened my collar despite the room's chill. Done. Everything's in place. When Franco initiates at 8, the trap springs automatically. We moved back to the war room. Waited. Watched security feeds showing Franco in the server room, confident and relaxed, checking his phone periodically, probably coordinating with O'Sullivan contacts, confirming everything was proceeding on schedule. At 7:45, Anthony's IT director called. "Sir, we're detecting unusual authorization requests. Someone's accessing financial systems with your brother's credentials. Let it proceed," Anthony said calmly. "Don't interfere." 7:58. Franco stood, stretched, approached the main terminal. Even through the grainy security footage, I could see his expression. Satisfaction. Victory. The smile of someone who thought he'd finally won. 8 a.m. Exactly. Franco entered the final authorization code. On our monitors, everything lit up simultaneously. Transaction initiated. Routing protocols engaged. And then, exactly as I'd programmed, the redirect kicked in. Assets that should have flowed to O'Sullivan accounts instead diverted into federal regulatory holding, tagged with fraud alerts, timestamps, and complete audit trails showing exactly who had initiated the transfer and why. Franco's expression on camera shifted from satisfaction to confusion. He typed frantically, trying to verify the transaction, but the system showed completion. Success. He'd have no idea what had actually happened until much later. "Now," Anthony said. We moved as a unit. Down 2 floors, through corridors I'd designed with multiple access points for exactly this kind of tactical necessity. Marco and his team spread out, controlling exit routes. By the time we reached the server room, Franco had realized something was wrong. The door opened to reveal him surrounded by 3 men in private security uniforms. Not Anthony's people. Franco's own hired protection. Probably promised bonuses from his O'Sullivan windfall. Brother. Franco's voice dripped with false warmth that couldn't quite hide the edge of panic. "Come to congratulate me on my successful transaction? Come to watch you fail," Anthony replied evenly. "Your transfer didn't go where you thought, Franco. Every asset you tried to steal is now frozen in regulatory investigation. The FBI received automatic notifications the moment you initiated. They're probably in the building already." Franco's face went white. "You couldn't have. The system, I checked everything. You checked the primary system. You never knew about the backup." Anthony stepped forward. "You betrayed your family for money and revenge. You threatened my son. You collaborated with people who tried to kill Leo. For what? Pride? Resentment because you didn't inherit the throne you thought you deserved? You took everything from me." Franco's composure cracked completely. "I built this with you, bled for this family, and you just decided one day to go legitimate, cut out half our revenue streams, make us look weak in front of the other families. I decided to build something Leo could inherit without shame. Something that wouldn't destroy him the way this life destroyed me, destroyed you." Anthony's voice was cold. "You could have been part of that future. Instead, you chose to tear it down." Franco reached inside his jacket. His security team moved, but Marco was faster. Gunshots rang out. deafening in the enclosed space. Franco's man went down. The others hesitated, hands raised, clearly not paid enough to die for someone else's vendetta. Then Franco did something I didn't expect. He pulled a phone, not a gun, typed frantically, and smiled, vicious and triumphant. You think you've won? You think blocking money matters? He held up the phone screen. I had a contingency, brother. Insurance for exactly this scenario. My O'Sullivan contacts have had a team positioned near your precious safe house for days. The moment you blocked the transfer, the moment I sent this signal, they move on your location. My blood went ice cold. Leo, your boy and your architect's little arrangement, both wrapped up in one convenient package. Franco's smile widened. Give me what I want, everything you blocked, or you'll never see either of them alive again. Anthony moved so fast I barely registered it. He had Franco slammed against the server rack, forearm across his throat. Where? Exact location. Catskills property, the one you thought was so secret. We've known for weeks. Hacked your system, copied your tracking protocols. Franco gasped for air. They're waiting for my signal. Give me the assets, or I send it now. Everything slowed down. Every calculation I'd made, every security protocol, every careful design meant to protect Leo. And Franco had circumvented all of it through simple human treachery and digital infiltration we hadn't anticipated at that level. We need to go, I said. Now. Helicopter to the property. Full tactical team. He's bluffing, Anthony said, but uncertainty crept into his voice. Maybe. But can you risk Leo's life on maybe? I grabbed my phone, tried calling James. No answer. Carter. Same. My stomach dropped. The safe house isn't responding. Anthony released Franco, who crumpled, gasping, to Marco. Secure him. Everyone on the O'Sullivan payroll in this building. Take them into custody. Call my FBI contact. Tell them Franco Ravellini is ready for federal questioning about racketeering and attempted financial fraud. To me, let's move. The helicopter was already spooling up when we reached the roof. Dawn was breaking over the city, painting the skyline in shades of blood orange. Appropriate, given what we were about to face. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered. Miss Cole. The voice was female, cold, efficient. I represent people interested in concluding this business efficiently. Your young friend is unharmed. Our team encountered more resistance than anticipated at the property. But the situation is now under our control. If you've hurt him, we're business people, not monsters, but business requires leverage. Mr. Ravellini has something we want. When he provides it, the boy is returned. Simple transaction. What do you want? The port. Complete transfer of ownership, properly executed this time without interference. Sign it over, drop all charges against Franco, and the child lives. Refuse, and we demonstrate that family loyalty has consequences. The line went dead. Anthony had heard everything. They have him. Franco's contingency worked. Then we get him back. I held his gaze. Whatever it takes, we get Leo back. The helicopter lifted off, and I found myself falling back on the only thing I knew with certainty. Structural engineering, tactical assessment, problem-solving under pressure. Somewhere in the Catskills, in a house I'd evaluated for defensive capabilities, Leo was in the hands of professional criminals, and I was going to use every piece of knowledge I'd ever acquired to bring him home. 2 hours after the emergency call from the safe house, Anthony's tactical team surrounded the situation with military precision. James had managed one burst transmission before communications went dark. 12 O'Sullivan operatives, professional mercenaries, coordinated ambush at dawn. Carter was down but alive. Leo had been taken. Now we stood in a command center hastily assembled in an abandoned warehouse 15 miles from the safe house. Drone footage streamed across monitors, thermal imaging showing heat signatures inside the property, and 3 vehicles parked in defensive positions outside. They're using Leo as leverage, Marco reported, studying the tactical displays. Standard hostage protocol. They'll negotiate until they get what they want, or until they determine negotiation has failed. Anthony's face was carved from stone. How many inside? 8 confirmed. 4 more in the perimeter vehicles. They've fortified the main floor, set up observation posts on the second level. Marco pointed to the thermal readings. This signature here, smaller, isolated in the northeast bedroom. That's likely the child. My chest tightened. Leo, alone and terrified, surrounded by armed men who saw him as nothing more than a bargaining chip. What's the timeline for tactical entry? Standard hostage rescue? 12 hours minimum to plan and execute safely. Marco looked at Anthony. But we don't have 12 hours. Once they realize Franco's transfer failed, once they understand they're not getting paid, Leo becomes a liability instead of an asset. Then we go now, Anthony said. Sir, with respect, a hasty assault increases the risk to the child exponentially. Marco's voice was careful but firm. These are professionals. They'll have kill orders if they're breached. I studied the architectural plans I'd pulled up on my tablet. The safe house. The one I'd evaluated for defensive capabilities weeks ago. I knew every room, every window, every structural detail. There's another option. Everyone turned to look at me. The house has a secondary access point. A utility tunnel from the original build, connects to the root cellar. It's marked on the original blueprints, but the entrance is concealed behind what looks like foundation stone. I pulled up the schematic. I specified it be maintained during renovations specifically for emergency egress. The O'Sullivans wouldn't know about it unless they had the original architectural surveys. Anthony moved to my side, studying the plans. How wide? Maybe 3 feet. Tight fit, but navigable. Opens inside the pantry off the kitchen. If their forces are concentrated on main entry points and upper observation posts, the kitchen might be minimally guarded. Might be. Marco's skepticism was evident. That's a lot of uncertainty to risk a child's life on. Every option risks his life. I shot back. The question is which risk gives us the best odds. I looked at Anthony. I designed that house. I know the sightlines, the blind spots, the structural weaknesses. I can get inside. Absolutely not. Anthony's voice was flat. You're not trained for tactical operations. Neither is Leo, but he's in there anyway. I held his gaze. You need someone who knows the building intimately, who can navigate in the dark, who can identify the safest route to that bedroom. That's me. She's right. Marco's admission clearly cost him. Our team knows standard building layouts, but this structure has custom modifications. The architect would have knowledge we can't match. Anthony's jaw worked. If something goes wrong, sitting here planning, Leo dies anyway. I reached for his hand. Let me do this. Let me bring him home. The silence stretched. Finally, Anthony nodded once, sharp and decisive. Marco, outfit her with communications and body armor. Light gear, nothing that restricts movement in confined spaces. I want eyes on her every second. 30 minutes later, I was crawling through a tunnel that smelled of earth and old stone, a tactical headlamp providing the only light. Marco's voice came through my earpiece, directing based on drone surveillance above ground. You're 50 feet from the pantry access. No thermal signatures in the kitchen currently, but one hostile patrol passing through every 8 minutes. You'll have a window. The tunnel ended at a stone panel I'd specified during construction. I pushed carefully, feeling it rotate on concealed hinges, and emerged into darkness. The pantry. I pulled myself up, closed the access behind me, and paused to orient myself. Voices filtered from nearby. 2 men, speaking in clipped professional tones about perimeter security and extraction timelines. I pressed against the wall, controlling my breathing the way Anthony had taught me during the crane collapse. Fear was information, not a weakness. Target is quiet, one voice said. Hasn't made a sound since we secured him. Smart kid or traumatized? Hard to tell. Boss says if the transfer doesn't clear by noon, we eliminate the asset and extract. No witnesses, no loose ends. My blood turned to ice. Noon. That gave us 3 hours. I waited until their footsteps receded, then moved. The kitchen opened into a hallway I'd designed with multiple doorways for traffic flow. Now those doorways provided cover. I slipped from shadow to shadow, my architect's knowledge of the building allowing me to anticipate squeaking floorboards, avoid furniture placement, navigate without sight. Marco's voice. 2 hostiles on the stairs. blocking access to the second floor. You'll need to wait for a patrol rotation. How long? 4 minutes. I pressed into a doorway alcove and waited. Counted seconds. Thought about Leo alone upstairs, probably replaying the ambush in his mind, wondering if anyone was coming. I'd promised him I'd keep him safe. I'd promised Anthony I'd protect his son. I wasn't breaking those promises. The hostile patrol moved past, heading toward the kitchen. I had maybe 90 seconds before they'd return. I took the stairs silently, testing each step for creaks before committing my weight. At the top, a hallway stretched toward the northeast bedroom. One guard sat outside the door, weapon across his lap, scrolling through his phone with the bored expression of someone on babysitting duty. One hostile outside the target room. I whispered into my comms. I need a distraction. Stand by. Marco's voice. Then seconds later, an explosion of sound from outside. Gunfire, shouting, the sound of vehicles approaching. The guard jumped up, moved toward the window to investigate. I ran. Hit the bedroom door, wrenched it open, saw Leo sitting on the bed looking small and terrified and alive. His eyes went wide. Miss Lauren? We're leaving, right now. Stay close to me and don't make a sound. I grabbed his hand and pulled him toward the hallway. The guard was at the window, speaking urgently into a radio. We had seconds. The window at the end of the hall. I'd specified reinforced glass, but I'd also insisted on emergency release latches for fire egress. I found it, triggered it, and the window swung outward. Below, a 12-foot drop to a snow-covered roof section I'd designed as decorative architecture. Can you climb? I asked Leo. He nodded, pale but determined. Then climb. I'm right behind you. He went through the window as shouts erupted behind us. The guard had realized what was happening. I pushed Leo toward the roof edge where a drainage pipe offered handholds, then followed as gunfire cracked above our heads. We scrambled down the pipe, my hands burning from the cold metal, Leo's smaller form moving with surprising agility. We hit the ground and ran toward the tree line where Marco's team was positioned. Gunfire intensified. Someone was shooting at us. I felt something impact my shoulder, pain blooming hot and sharp, but I didn't stop. Couldn't stop. Just kept running, Leo's hand in mine, the trees getting closer. Then Anthony was there, appearing from the shadows with 2 other operatives, returning fire toward the house. He grabbed Leo with one arm, his other hand steadying me as my legs tried to give out. I've got you both. Move. We reached the extraction point where vehicles waited, engines running. I collapsed into the back seat. Leo clutched against my chest, Anthony shouting orders for immediate evacuation. The world spun, adrenaline fading into shock and pain and overwhelming relief. You're bleeding. Leo's voice, small and scared. Just a scratch, I lied. Are you okay? Are you hurt? No, they didn't hurt me. They just locked me in the room. His eyes were huge. You came for me. Of course I came for you. I held him tighter. Always, Leo, always. Anthony was in the front seat coordinating with his team, but his eyes kept finding mine in the rearview mirror, checking, confirming we were real and alive and safe. The relief in his expression was stark. We drove for 30 minutes before switching vehicles, then another hour before reaching a private medical facility where Anthony's doctor waited. The bullet had passed through muscle tissue, missing anything vital. I'd been lucky. In the recovery room afterward, Anthony sat beside my bed while Leo slept in a chair nearby, exhausted from trauma and relief. You could have died, Anthony said quietly. So could Leo, but we didn't. I reached for his hand. Your brother's plan failed. The O'Sullivans lost their leverage. What happens now? Franco's in federal custody. The evidence Lauren compiled, the transfer attempt, everything. He's facing 30 years minimum. Anthony's voice was hollow. My brother. My blood. And I chose you and Leo over him without hesitation. He wasn't dead. But for a man like him, federal custody might as well have been exile. His accounts were frozen. His allies under investigation. His influence dismantled piece by piece. He couldn't reach us anymore. The only power he held now lived in court records and sealed case files. Because he stopped being your brother when he threatened your son. I squeezed his hand. You chose family, Anthony. Real family. The kind built on loyalty and love, not just shared DNA. He was quiet for a long moment. Then, I was wrong. About keeping people at a distance, about not trusting anyone, about building walls to protect myself. All it did was make me vulnerable in ways I didn't understand. And now I want to tear down those walls. Let people in. Build something real with you and Leo if you'll have us. His eyes met mine. Not a contract. Not an arrangement. A real family. I thought you'd never ask. He kissed me then, gentle and careful of my injuries. And I tasted possibility. A future I'd never imagined when I walked into that blind date on Christmas my sister had bullied me into accepting. Leo stirred, opened his eyes, saw us. Are you my mama now? For real? I looked at Anthony, saw his hope and fear and desperate wanting. Looked at Leo, this brave, brilliant boy who'd survived more than any child should have to face. Yeah, I said. For real. 1 year had passed since that Christmas night when everything changed. 1 year since I'd hit an armed man with an umbrella and accidentally found myself building a family instead of just buildings. The opening ceremony for the Cole Ravellini Urban Park drew a crowd larger than I'd anticipated. City officials, architectural press, families from the neighborhood who'd watched construction progress over months. The space we'd created stretched across 2 city blocks in Lower Manhattan. Green space carved from what had once been abandoned industrial property. My design, Anthony's funding, our shared vision of creating something beautiful and functional and safe. You look nervous. Anthony appeared at my elbow, looking effortlessly elegant in a dark suit. No tie, because he knew I preferred him that way. Small intimacies learned over a year of actually being together instead of just performing togetherness. I'm always nervous before presentations. I smoothed my emerald dress, the same shade I'd worn that first night and every important event since. It had become our thing. Green for Lauren. A visual signature. What if people hate it? They won't hate it. It's brilliant. He gestured to the park spreading before us. You turned a contaminated brownfield into a community asset. Children are already playing on equipment you designed to be both fun and developmentally appropriate. Elderly residents have walking paths with integrated seating at exactly the intervals your research indicated they'd need. You even built in tactical security features so seamlessly that nobody realizes they're being protected. The security was your requirement. The genius was making it invisible. He took my hand, squeezed. You did this, Lauren. Own it. Leo ran up, all 7 years of energy and excitement, clutching the sign he'd made himself. The letters were uneven but carefully colored. My mom built this. My chest tightened the way it always did when he called me mom. Real and official now. Adoption finalized 6 months ago, after extensive vetting by social services, who'd eventually concluded that yes, Anthony Ravellini had genuinely transformed his business operations into legitimate enterprise. And yes, Lauren Cole was an appropriate guardian. Is it time yet? Leo demanded. Can we do the ribbon cutting? 5 more minutes, I promised. Did you show your sign to Marco? Marco says it's perfect. He also says the playground fort I helped design is structurally superior to most military installations. Leo said this with complete seriousness. I think he was joking, but I'm not sure. Marco doesn't joke, Anthony and I said simultaneously, then smiled at each other. The park had been deliberately built on the site of the building where Franco's empire had finally collapsed, and federal agents had walked him out in handcuffs. The symbolism wasn't lost on anyone who knew the full story. Destruction transformed into creation, death into life, betrayal into something resembling redemption. Not that Franco had earned redemption. He was serving 28 years in federal prison for racketeering, conspiracy, and attempted kidnapping. The O'Sullivan family had been dismantled through coordinated FBI operations that Anthony had fully cooperated with. We were safe now. Actually safe, not just performing safety. The ceremony began with the mayor's speech about urban revitalization and public-private partnerships. Then my turn. I stepped to the podium, looking out at faces that included my construction crew, my professional colleagues, and the families who would actually use this space. A year ago, I was an architect focused on buildings, I began. Structure, materials, function. I thought I understood design. Then I met someone who challenged me to think differently, To design not just for efficiency, but for protection. Not just for aesthetics, but for life. I found Anthony in the crowd, Leo standing beside him. This park represents what happens when you combine different kinds of expertise. Urban planning and security analysis, childhood development and tactical awareness, beauty and safety. It's built on ground that once represented loss and violence, transformed into space where children can play and families can gather without fear. I detailed the features, the sustainable materials, the native plantings chosen to thrive in urban conditions, the water features designed for both beauty and emergency fire access, the seemingly decorative barriers that were actually rated to stop vehicles from entering pedestrian spaces. Everything dual purpose, everything thoughtful. But mostly, I concluded, this park represents the idea that we can build better foundations. For our cities, for our communities, for our families. We can take broken things and make them whole. We just have to be willing to do the work. The ribbon cutting came with champagne and applause. Leo wielded the oversized scissors with theatrical flair, while cameras captured the moment. Then he was off, running toward the playground fort that had been partly his design, other children following. Anthony and I stood watching, his arm around my waist. Co-CEO of development looks good on you, he murmured. Even if you insist on spending half your time on actual construction sites instead of in boardrooms. Someone has to make sure contractors follow specifications. I leaned into him. Besides, boardrooms are your specialty. I prefer blueprints to balance sheets. Lucky we complement each other then. A reporter approached, one of the architectural journalists who'd been following the project. Miss Cole, there's been some discussion about the park's location. Building on the site of, well, given the history here, was that intentional? I met her eyes directly. Completely intentional. Cities have long memories. Sites of tragedy can become sites of renewal if we're brave enough to acknowledge the past while building toward better futures. This ground held violence. Now it holds hope. That's not erasure. That's transformation. She nodded, satisfied, and moved on to photograph the water features. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. The park lights activated automatically, warm and welcoming. Families settled on benches. Children shrieked with joy from playground equipment, and the city hummed around us in its usual chaotic symphony. Papa, Mama, come see. Leo waved from the top of the fort structure, victorious. He called you Mama, Anthony observed. He's been doing that for months. I know. Still makes me happy every time. He turned to face me fully. I have something for you. Anthony, you already gave me the partnership, the co-CEO position, He pulled out a leather portfolio. Open it. Inside were property deeds. Multiple properties. The penthouse, the port, the warehouse development, a dozen others. All transferred to joint ownership. My name next to his on every single document. You already did this with the business holdings, I said quietly. You didn't have to. I want you to have everything. Legal partnership in all of it. Not because you need my money or my property, but because we built this together. The legitimate business, the clean operations, the life where Leo can grow up proud of his family instead of scared of it. His voice roughened. You redesigned more than buildings, Lauren. You redesigned me, us, everything. I kissed him. There in the park I'd built on the ruins of his old life, long and deep and unconcerned about the public setting. When we broke apart, his eyes held something I'd never seen that first Christmas night, when I'd been so certain I was destined for solitude. Marry me, he said. Not for appearance, not for CPS approval, not for business advantage. Marry me because I want to wake up next to you every morning for the rest of my life and know that you chose this, chose us, chose to stay, even when staying was terrifying. You're really asking me to marry you in a park, in front of 200 people, with no ring. I'm really asking you to marry you in a park you designed, at the opening ceremony for your greatest professional achievement, surrounded by people who respect your work, because you never wanted conventional romance anyway. You wanted partnership. He smiled. As for the ring, it's in my pocket. I've been carrying it for 3 months, waiting for the perfect moment. This felt right. He produced a ring, emerald center stone flanked by diamonds. And suddenly I understood why he'd insisted on reviewing the jewelry designs for the park's donor recognition wall. He'd been getting inspiration. "It's perfect," I breathed. "Is that a yes?" "That's a yes, you impossible man." I kissed him again. Yes to marriage, yes to partnership, yes to everything we've built and everything we're still building. Leo's cheer from the fort was audible across the entire park. "Finally, I told Papa to ask you months ago." The crowd laughed, applauded, and I felt the full weight of what we'd created. Not just this park, not just the business empire transformed from criminality to legitimacy, but actual family, the kind that chose each other daily, that worked through fear and trauma and impossibility to build something solid. That night, after the ceremony ended and the crowds dispersed, the three of us walked the park together. Leo ran ahead, testing every piece of playground equipment, declaring each one perfect. Anthony and I followed at a slower pace, hands linked. "Do you ever think about that night?" I asked. "Christmas? The restaurant? The blind date that went so wrong?" "Constantly." He squeezed my hand. "If that lawyer hadn't been an arrogant fool, if you hadn't been walking past at that exact moment, if Leo hadn't been in danger right then, if any single variable had been different, we wouldn't be here." My sister would probably insist on putting that on her resume someday. Accidentally responsible for one functional mafia-adjacent family. It was easier to imagine her laughing about it now than it had been that first night. Chaos theory. Small changes create massive consequences. You would make it about architectural principles. Everything's about architectural principles if you think hard enough. I looked back at the park, lights glowing against gathering darkness. We built this, Anthony. From nothing but trauma and determination and a really weird employment contract, we built something real. We built a foundation, he corrected, strong enough to support whatever comes next. Leo called us over to the replica of the concrete barrier where I'd first protected him, the one Anthony had installed as private memorial. Someone had left flowers there, and Leo was examining them with serious attention. "Why do people leave flowers?" he asked. "To remember," Anthony said quietly. "To honor what happened here and what it became, because bad things became good things." Leo nodded like this made perfect sense to his 7-year-old logic. Like how Franco was bad, but now we have Lauren instead. "That's one way to look at it," I agreed. "I like this way better." Leo grabbed both our hands. "Can we come back tomorrow? I want to test the fort again." "We can come back whenever you want," Anthony promised. "This is ours. Your mama built it for the whole city, but especially for us." Walking home through Manhattan streets, Leo between us swinging from our joined hands, I thought about structures and foundations, and the way good architecture shaped how people lived their lives. I'd spent my career believing buildings were the important work. Now I understood that buildings were just containers. It was the people inside them, the families they sheltered, the lives they protected, that mattered. We'd started with a business arrangement and built a family. Started with fear and created safety. Started with nothing but an umbrella and desperation and built an empire of legitimacy and love. Not a bad return on investment for one disastrous blind date. The end.